What's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and if you like Game Pass, then you're going to love today's episode. Xbox Game Pass just revealed their next wave of games, and then I started to look at it, and I was just kind of like, wow. The next 30 days for Game Pass subscribers is absolutely locked and loaded, especially if a recent rumor turns out to be true. So stick around, and we're going to talk all about that, as well as another update for the Nintendo Switch 2, which seemingly confirmed a lot of the speculation that's been going around. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and I truly do appreciate you all. Let's just go and get right into things, though, starting off with a delay. Yep. Might as well just go and rip the Band-Aid off and get to the bad news here, because Analogue just sent out a wave of emails to their customers that they are indeed delaying the Analogue 3D, aka the FPGA Nintendo 64. It'll now release by July of 2025, meaning that it could actually release a little bit earlier than that, but they are targeting shipments by at least July. I mean, honestly, I don't think most people who's been following the situation is all that surprised by this, just because before today, its target release date was by the end of March. And yeah, we're almost at the end of March, and we still haven't heard anything about this console since its initial pre-order announcement. And I think that's where the problem starts to seep in for people who pre-ordered this thing. You know, I've seen a lot of frustration over this specific delay, and a part of that is simply because of how silent Analogue has been. I mean, we still haven't seen footage or examples of their claims when it comes to the Analogue 3D. They claim that it'll display Nintendo 64 games in 4K as one such example, but they haven't actually shown how that actually looks like, what it actually is. You know, is it going to be upscaled? Is there going to be letterboxing? Are they going to improve things like frame rate? What kind of features does this console have? And we just don't know anything at all. They haven't revealed anything. So I do understand the frustration in this specific situation, but I will say this, despite Analogue's business practices, which can be sketchy at times, they do make good consoles. So hopefully they'll be able to deliver another good quality and really just a much needed product for Nintendo 64 fans. Oh, and speaking of the Nintendo 64 era, we might as well go ahead and talk about the return of an old PlayStation 1 game. You might remember that Croc HD was announced last year, and it faced its own delay as it got pushed out of 2024. Well, I'm happy to say that they've now given us an official release date, which is April 2nd. So yeah, it's only mere weeks away, and they even gave us a brand new gameplay trailer to tide us over until then. I mean, it continues to look really good, and Croc HD might not necessarily be the most popular or even the best mascot platformer from that generation, but it still had a lot of fans, and I'm really glad to see it get a new remaster. We don't get a lot of these type of games anymore in today's world, so it's just fun to go back and to revisit them, not only with a fresh coat of paint, as you're seeing here, but also in cases like this with better controls. It'll have dual analog this time around, which is a nice quality of life improvement. I mean, if you think about it this way, though, two of the 90s mascot lizards are actually on their way back in 2024. We also have the Gex trilogy to look forward to as well. So, yeah, I mean, it just must be the year of the lizard. Now, we also got some news from Hazelight. I've praised them a lot these past few weeks because, well, frankly, they deserve it. They delivered on yet another great creative game in Split Fiction that's also consumer-friendly. I mean, those are rare commodities in today's industry, but they're not going to simply rest on their laurels. Joseph Fares, being the head of the studio, officially announced that they're already working on their next game. Yeah, his statement reads, "Split Fiction is the best received game we have done. Everybody is super happy, but I'm so fully focused and excited on the next thing that we've already started." So, there you go. They're full steam ahead, which, I mean, I think a lot of that just comes from their passion. I think this is a studio that truly loves games, and they want to pour their hearts into their creations. I mean, you can just tell when you play their games, just the attention to detail, every little random thing, just all of the creativity. This is a very passionate studio, and even Joseph Fares, you know, he radiates that when he talks to gamers. Looking back at their history, though, we could possibly peg their next game for maybe a 2028 or even a 2029 release. A Way Out released in 2018, It Takes Two in 2021, and then Split Fiction in 2025. So assuming that they keep that trend up, then we're probably looking at about a 3 to 4 year development cycle. Now, maybe other studios could take note that, yeah, you can make good, successful games that don't take 6, 7, 8 years to develop. All right, so let's go and talk about Xbox Game Pass because we're about ready to hit a hot stretch, and I mean a hot stretch from now through April. I mean, next month truly looks exceptional. We'll get into that here in just a moment, but first let's go take a look at the rest of their March lineup of games. This includes 33 Immortals, which is available today. Then there's Atomfall. That one looks incredibly ambitious. There's Blizzard Arcade Collection, Mythwrecked, Octopath Traveler 2, and Train SimWorld 5. Now, of course, you need to make sure each game aligns with the tier that you're currently subscribed to, but I think the first big highlight here is 33 Immortals. Again, it's available today as a day one early access title, and this is an independent roguelike that they've been hyping up for a very long time. It offers a unique 33-player cooperative experience. Apparently, you can dive straight into its 33-player co-op battles with instant pick-up and raid matchmaking. You can also play cooperatively with your allies to survive against hordes of monsters and massive, challenging bosses. So, I mean, if you like roguelike experiences, this one might be worth checking out. Now, there's also some early access reviews on Metacritic, and it seems to be fairly well liked so far, which is, always a great sign when it comes to these early access games. Now, the other game that I can easily recommend is Octopath Traveler 2. It's now heading over to the standard tier, and this very well might be one of the best JRPGs of the last few years, especially if you like old school turn-based JRPGs like Final Fantasy VI. It was heavily inspired by that game, and I will say that if you played the first Octopath Traveler, and if you just couldn't get into it, the sequel is a better overall experience. They improved on it a lot, so maybe go ahead and give it another try. Now, the last game here that could be worth keeping an eye on is Atomfall, and this could actually be the biggest of the three. This is another day one launch for Game Pass, and it's a survival game based on the Windscale nuclear disaster in northern England. It's actually set 5 years after that, and it's kind of got a Fallout vibe to it, and I mean, it seems like it has some real potential. I mean, every single year, we get at least one new survival game that almost just kind of comes out of nowhere and becomes this raging success, and I look at Atomfall, and I almost kind of wonder if this could be one of those breakout hits. I mean, it's all going to come down to its execution, but again, I think it has a lot of potential, and it will be available on March 27th. If that wasn't already enough for you, though, let's just go and take a look at April, because, like I said, the next 30-plus days is loaded. I mean, you have 33 Immortals and Atomfall. We just talked about those. And then on April 7th, Xbox has a first-party game, South of Midnight. Now, this is a unique blend of stop-motion animation with a Deep South atmosphere. Now, admittedly, I'm not completely sold on this game just yet because Compulsion Studios historically has been a very creative studio from an artistic point of view, but their games have always received mixed reception, whether that be Contrast or We Happy Few. Though I will say that I was actually in the camp that enjoyed that game. It wasn't necessarily perfect, but I enjoyed its atmosphere and its story. After South of Midnight, though, Commando's Origins is planned for April 9th. That's a popular real-time tactics series. Then on the same day, Descenders Next is getting its day one launch. The first Descenders game was very popular on Game Pass a few years back when it first launched, and its sequel honestly looks even better. It's much expanded with even more extreme sports such as snowboarding. Then on April 24th, Expedition 33 will launch into Game Pass, and this is by far one of the most interesting JRPGs planned for 2025. I mean, there's a lot of hype for this one from JRPG enthusiasts, and really, I'd say for a good reason. It looks impressive so far. It's a turn-based JRPG with AAA-esque visuals, which is something that a lot of studios have kind of shied away from when it comes to this genre. The story also sounds very interesting. The characters are well designed. It's got an overworld like old school JRPGs, and it also seems to draw a lot of inspiration from Lost Odyssey and its combat. I mean, that's a great game to draw inspiration from. And if anything else here, this studio says really all the right things. So hopefully, Expedition 33 will live up to its hype. If that still isn't enough, though, there is a rumor that Xbox has a surprise launch planned for next month, and that's none other than the Oblivion remake. Now, I've been a little skeptical about it actually releasing in April. I feel like it might be a little bit too crowded, but according to two notable leakers, they are pointing to an April announcement and maybe even possibly an April release as well. This comes from Nate the Hate and the Video Game Chronicles, both of which mentioned a possible April release. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but, I mean, we're truly entering into a hot stretch for Game Pass, and I didn't even talk about Doom the Dark Ages and Tony Hawk, which are also coming here in the next few months. Yeah, it might be a good time to subscribe to Game Pass if you haven't already. Now, one last thing before we go, though, and I want to go and spread caution when it comes to this one, just because this is not from a source that I would typically talk about on the channel because I don't really know their track record. However, in this case, it's been blowing up online with several outlets reporting on it, so fans are kind of, getting hyped up about this, and again, I don't know about the authenticity, but I do believe the general idea of this alleged leak. So let's just kind of take a look here. This comes from Reese, which has his own podcast, and he said that in less than a month, in the Switch 2 Direct, you'll see that Nintendo and Retro were keeping their cards close to their chest with Metroid Prime 4 for this exact moment. The true unveiling will blow everything else in the Direct out of the water. Now, again, this isn't one of the typical leakers that we talk about on the channel, so we can kind of question it from that aspect. But I also feel like this is a statement that's relatively easy to believe. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily going to blow everything else out of the water, but at the same time, I can easily believe that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be revealed for the Switch 2. This has been speculated for a long time, and I think it just makes perfect sense. The Metroid Prime series has always been a great showcase piece for Nintendo hardware. They can just kind of show the power of what they have to offer. And Metroid Prime 4 would really be the perfect game to debut on the Switch 2, even if it's a cross-generation game. So, I really wouldn't be all that surprised to see it make an appearance here in the coming month. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.